here's the situation. Today is July 1st. This video will probably go live. Oh my god, no, it's August 1st. This video will probably go live August 4th or 5th, and this is my July wrap up. The first book that I read, this is a little silly, guys, but I was in LA for most of July. I found this in the bookstore. It's called Everyone Has What It Takes. It's kind of like writerly self-help, but I don't know, there's some really great anecdotes and it's a good example of personal narrative and writing. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning more about this man's writing ethos and the connections he draws between writing and spirituality. It's a quick read. Not everyone needs to run out and get it though. So that's what I started the month with. Then I read, because I was in LA, I read Queen Eve Babitz. Black Swan is a collection that came out in the early 90s, and this is an older, more mature Babitz. She has sobered up. She has reconciled with the fact that she is aging, and her stories touch upon that. They touch upon how LA has changed. With a focus on the 80s and the 90s, we discovered the Rodney King riots and how Eve has grappled with her newfound sobriety and age, something she didn't imagine would really hit her. I do think that it might not be her strongest work, but there are some really great sentences, and I also really loved her short story. Oh, what is it called? I think it is called Black Swans. The short story called Black Swans, which basically recounts her rise to writing, or rather how she got into it, how she was in a relationship with a writer and he did not support her. And to see how she, as a woman who was a self-described groupie, really reconciles with her own agency, and how the best thing that could have happened to her was to not marry him, is interesting. I think that was the strongest story for me. Okay, then I read, because I was in LA, right, like, hello Hollywood, I read Star by Mishima. This novella explores the life of a young actor who is hot. He is the star of the moment. He is successful. Girls want him. Guys want to be him. And he's very like detached from what's happening. He's recounting, I don't know, maybe like a week in his life, something like that. And you see how he is exhausted, how he has to work so hard. He barely has a moment for privacy. He barely has a love life. He does. But it's an interesting one because it is with a woman that no one would expect him to be involved with. I liked it. It's very subtle. At the end of it, Yukio looks at an older actor and has a moment of realization because age comes for all of us. Then I read The Water Statues by Fleur Jaeggy. This book, though slim, is dense. It is challenging. It's told more so like a play. It recounts the aristocracy, in particular, how cold and detached they are even within their own families. We are very removed from the story, and I think it's worth a reread because I low-key did not know what was happening. It's a hard book to read because it's not linear at all. It is very evocative, and I think the statues were talking to us, but I can't be sure. Then I read The Death of Francis Bacon by Max Porter. These are basically like vignettes. Max has kind of envisioned the final days of Francis Bacon, and each little scene has an imaginary painting attached to it. It's cool, explosive, lots of themes of guilt and excess. I think you could just read this in the bookstore though. And then call it a day. Then I read Revenge of the Scapegoat, which I don't know where I put it. And this is an interesting story. I found it to be a little underdeveloped. It tells the story of a woman in her 40s who has escaped from her family, and she receives 2 letters in the mail from her father. And these letters were given to her originally when she was like 16 or 12 years old, something like that. And they shattered her. They destroyed her ego. And now she has them again. And she's feeling all of those feelings. She feels like she is the scapegoat of the family. Caren, I don't think that's her name. That's not her name. And so our narrator is this woman who also suffers from chronic pain. she has given her feet names. They speak to her. This is when the book gets very surreal. And in a moment of chance, she decides to escape to Massachusetts. And she's in the countryside. And there is a museum run by this eclectic elderly woman who is hella wealthy. And this woman reads her letters, right? She reads them without asking. And she's like, why are you so upset? These letters are so mild. And then weird things start happening. There's cows and Picasso, and it's a very slim and disjointed narrative. You know, we shift from the intro to mass and then back to the place of origin. If anything that I said sounded interesting to you, give it a go, but I would say that I would have loved a little bit more. Then I reread Lapvona for my convo with Beilin from the bar in the bookcase because I had devoured Lapvona the first time around. Second time, yeah, I liked it. I do think it's a fun story, but once again, like a little bit underdeveloped. I think we could have had another 10,000 words. I think we could have fleshed out a few more scenes, or rather added in more scenes. It is what it is. Then I read 3 books from not the international. I read 3 books from the Booker. First up was O. William. This is good. O. William tells the story of Lucy. She is a late middle-aged woman whose second husband has recently passed, and her first husband comes back into her life. Though he's never really left, they always stay in touch. He has discovered a family secret, and he calls upon Lucy to help him get to the bottom of this. This is a story about how well do you really know someone, how well do you really know yourself, but also an exploration of marriage, aging, and class in America. That's why I really liked it. Then I read Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. This behemoth unpacks the family history of John Wilkes Booth, the man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. It is very long. I don't recommend it really. Just go read yourself a biography on Lincoln or go read the books of Jacob instead. Then the last thing that I read yesterday in an hour was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Now this is like a Christmas parable where we have a very narrow focus on a particular community within Ireland. And our narrator is, you know, a very kind of like a soft-spoken, hardworking man. He discovers that the nuns are like not being nice to young women, i.e. because this is the time of the Magdalene laundry, so you know it's rough. It was really rough, and he sees something which really bothers him for days, and then it's kind of a question of will he or won't he do something. This is really a story of like guilt and community, because as the days go by, our narrator realizes that there are people in town who actually like they kind of know what's happening, and he is shocked to discover this because he didn't know. It's a very quick read. It actually takes only an hour, and it's an intro into this time in history that you might not otherwise have known anything about. That was my July reading. This wrap up was kind of quick because my reading was almost sporadic, you know, like I read a lot of little slim guys and then one really big book that was not actually hard to read, so there's that, but it was not fun to read. Okay, so hopefully August I will be working my way through the rest of the Booker, and I would like to read more things as well, so we will see where the month takes us.